Welcome to Home's Room. Just like Homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin. Welcome back. This is going to be an interesting episode, not only because of the topic, but also because it seems like I might be having internet issues. So we're going to be flying by the seat of our pants on whether this works perfectly. Caitlin was moving to the intro music, and it was dead silent on my side. So I was like, question mark? Maybe it's working, maybe it's not. She's moving, so I hope so. But yeah, that's just my overthinking. See how I worked the topic into that intro thing there. Yeah. So we're going to talk about overthinking, and specifically like how it applies to us, I guess. So like if you're an overthinker, or if you are somebody who constantly feels overwhelmed when faced with a big task, this might be the perfect episode for you. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm always so interested to hear your perspective on these. And yet again, homie, we have a Google Doc where we sit, and usually Matt blows my mind with episode ideas. And I love the asterisks that you put on this topic.
Yeah.
But first, Matt, can you tell us, what does overthinking look like for you? Is there a certain time of the day that you do it, or is it just 24/7?
Well, first I'm going to start out with like what is overthinking and all of the like housekeeping stuff. So overthinking refers to excessive and repetitive dwelling on thoughts, often leading to worry, anxiety, and distress. I feel like distress is one of those, like, not necessarily for everybody distress, but it's a possibility. That one is in like parentheses in my mind. Causes are stress and anxiety, perfectionism, low self-esteem, negative thinking patterns, trauma. Some of the symptoms of overthinking is constant worry and rumination, which I love that they used rumination in this. That's kind of like, how often do you get to just throw that word out there? But cool. Feeling overwhelmed and exhausted, feeling restless and unable to sleep, which a lot of these are redundant, but like whatever. Obsessive thoughts and checking behaviors, which sounds like the symptom of overthinking is overthinking right there if you read between the lines. Catastrophizing, which is, I assume, something on everybody's overthinking wheel when it spins around and lands on. Imagining the worst possible scenarios. And this one I'm pointing out specifically because it will come back later in what we're talking about today. So for the purposes of this episode, we're talking about overthinking as it pertains to us, not overthinking as it pertains to everybody, because we are not mental health professionals. So we are not giving you advice in that manner. We are just two idiots having a conversation, and you happen to be a fly on the wall for it. So enjoy. There's that. And to answer your question, I would consider myself an overthinker. And I don't have a specific time that I overthink. My overthinking is situational, I guess. Big event, some sort of task, something. There's usually like a triggering effect for my overthinking, if that makes sense. Not just like every single thing I'm overthinking about. It's usually about a specific thing. So case in point, I am a coach again. So sometimes I overthink strategically, or like a move that I want to maybe make with my roster or anything like that. And like all of the ways that like that might affect something becomes part of my overthinking and, planning process. So there's that. What about you? Would you consider yourself an overthinker?
100%. I ask about specific time of the day, or, what it looks like for you, because for me, it's quite literally anytime I am laying in bed trying to fall asleep, it is very difficult for me to turn my brain off. I have to either have be like listening to a meditation or take a little melatonin or like make a concerted effort to stop overthinking every single night when I lay down and try to turn my brain off for the day. I also really like your description of it because catastrophizing and ruminating and everything that you just said is super in alignment with the type of therapy that I've had the most experience with, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. So putting it in the context of, for me, to frame my overthinking in the context of CBT is I can tell that I have switched into hyperactive, like survival mode when I am overthinking more, because that is one way for me to try and feel like I have control over everything, is if I think of every single possibility of how every single thing could work out and then make a plan to address every single possibility. Do you know how exhausting that is, Matt?
So, as I said in one of our last episodes, start paying attention to the stories because they're going to be a little bit more pointed on Saturdays. Those story polls, and some of them might show up in an episode. And a couple weeks ago, I had some about overthinking. And it was a SpongeBob esque one mental breakdown later, and then I asked when you overthink you, and then I had them vote on options, and it was freeze, become hyper aware, what's overthinking question mark, and find a blanket and hide. And I think those are some pretty standard overthinking habits. And believe it or not, what's overthinking got a 0% vote. Not a single person voted for that. So everybody out there, or at least everybody that listens to the show, is an overthinker, and I assume that's probably why you listen to the show, because we're heavy on the mental health and trying to just be some supportive potatoes on a couch helping each other out. But surprisingly, freeze was one of the lower poll results. So freeze only got 20%. Find a blanket and hide only got 20%. So as you said, you know how exhausting that is?
Mm-hmm.
Becoming hyper aware was overwhelming 60% of the vote. So I think all of us can safely say, yes, Caitlin, we know exactly how exhausting that is. So there's that. The other one, and I want to get your opinion on this, and I don't know if you vote on the polls, so if you're listening, make sure on Saturdays you go vote. But Caitlin, specifically for you, this one said, I'd rather walk barefoot across a rug of Legos than share a fun fact about myself with a group of people. And that one was a lot closer than I thought, and it was just a true or false. So, Caitlin, true or false? Would you rather walk barefoot across a rug of Legos than share a fun fact about yourself?
Yes, I would. Only because I have the connotation of like icebreakers, awkward icebreakers
Yeah.
in college. Ugh, nah, I'm good. It depends on the context, really, but yes, generally.
So, do you think you'd be in the majority or the minority with saying true? You would, in fact, walk across a rug full of Legos barefoot.
I'm going to say I'm in the majority.
You are not. You are in the
Oh,
minority, but it's very slim. Your vote might have tipped the scales. Every vote matters. Listen, people, every vote matters. It was 45 to 55% on true or false. So, like, it seems pretty close. And then I want to get your opinion on this one because it kind of ties into our Valentine's Day ish wedding theme, and it was about a person flipping their phone upside down. And this doesn't seem like on its face overthinking, but it is overanalyzing, and that might kick off a sense of, well, why is it upside down? Well, why is this? Well, why is that? But also, should I be worried? Could I be like, and it might kick off overthinking. So I slipped that one in there. So if your partner's phone is flipped upside down, either it says either you hiding something or you're cheating, and the response to that picture was, no, I flipped my phone over to let you know, to let you insecure fools know I'm focused on you. And the options to vote were cheating, giving full attention, just put the phone down with zero thought. So Caitlin, what are you gonna pick? What is your vote on that one?
In the specific context of my husband, it is probably I'm trying to give you my full attention, especially because at the end of the workday, we really only have, we're in this fun season of life with two tiny young humans that we're responsible for, that we probably have about 10 minutes at the end of the day to actually lock in and like communicate and share about our workday and debrief about everything that we missed when we were all working or at daycare. And my husband knows that at that point in the day, my Adderall is starting to wear off. And I'm so easily overstimulated that he does me the courtesy of, let me turn this phone over. I got to lock in with you because I got to give extra effort to communicate. Come on, let's just try this for like 5 minutes. Yeah. Either that or his weather app notifications are going off too much, too frequently, too loudly. Because he's in construction, he has to pay attention to that. So
okay,
so never anything nefarious, but more so yeah. I'm overstimulated.
So that giving full attention was the winner in the poll with 46%. Coming in second was just put my phone down with zero thought, and that's 100% me. Is like I literally just threw my phone down. I didn't know which direction it was facing. If I turn my phone upside down, generally it's so it doesn't distract me, not so it doesn't like so it has nothing to do with me giving full attention to another person. It's because it's something shiny and I look over and it's like, oh hey, did I do that thing? No. Do I need to? Maybe not. I don't know. And then I just start a spiral of like, I think I needed to do something. Did I go look that up? Especially where it comes to like random stupid things. So it's more for me to like put it out of my mind than anything else. Cause I like I said, I just like toss it on the couch and that's where it lands. 15% said cheating. So not a lot of people were like, oh yeah, you're terrible. Everybody's cheating. So that was, again, a surprising thing. So like, when it comes to those things, I finished with that question specifically because sometimes overthinking is like I said, for me, it's, just pops up when it pops up. For you, it's, maybe more frequent, maybe more like a routine built in kind of deal. So with that last one, sometimes maybe you overthink a lot and it creates that issue where you're overthinking little things like that. So Caitlin, how often do you overthink?
If I had to ballpark it, homie, I'd probably say about minimum 2 times a day on my bad days where I'm very much in flight or fight because I don't really freeze ever.
Yeah.
It could be upwards of 5, 6, 7, especially if it's a super stressful day at work. I just am constantly overanalyzing text messages. I used to be really bad I used to be worse about it with text messages. Matt, how many times did we ever have a conversation where I was like, Matt, are you mad at me? Are we fighting? Are you mad at me? What did I do wrong? I find that I do that on bad days at work with my coworkers. Sometimes I'll like overanalyze like, okay, or I'll get to it when I get to it kind of thing. But at least twice a day, every day.
Yeah, that's pretty stressful. I can see that. I think that how much and how often you overthink says, not specifically with you in your particular instant, but just in general. I think that's where like you have to start paying attention to the patterns and like, is it a certain time of day? Is it like you said, it was at night? So like, is it a certain time of day? Is there a specific reason? Because sometimes it's like, man, this motherfucker comes into work and it kicks off my overthinking, and it's your body having a reaction to a situation. You just like, you have to start plotting those things out. And sometimes to get out of those overthinking spirals, that's like the thing that helps, like shutting your brain off at night, and like going to bed. If you know that that's when it is, like you said, you have to find ways to, get your brain to lock in on something different. The old warm glass of milk thing, which sounds disgusting to me, but whatever. I like your vigorous, even your ponytail is like in on that,
lactose intolerant. Yep.
Yes, yep. So find something that works for you, and plot the things. A lot of and Caitlin will agree, as an analyst, data points matter, and
Mhm.
you gotta get the data points. And if you're noticing it and it's becoming a problem, definitely get one of those little planner notebooks and mark it down, a tally mark, whatever it is, and see if it happens more frequently in the middle of the day or in the middle of the week, or right before bed, and you notice that pattern, you might be able to help. um I don't know. Do you have any advice for like the frequency of an overthinker?
Yes, specifically with your analogy of analyst and data points. Data points is and has been everything for me. Whether it's relationships at work, even my own husband, I cannot advocate enough for how marriage counseling has totally changed our communication with each other, in that I'm an over communicator and he is an under communicator. So I'm sitting there going crazy with data points that didn't even come from him. Mind you, he's still learning how to communicate. We both are. It's obviously like a lifelong endeavor. Um, but also being able to have more effective communication with each other. But even with my coworkers, like just a very direct question, a 2-second direct question of, are you mad at me? Or like, are we good? Are you okay? I don't do that with all my coworkers. I have, closer relationships with some versus others. But taking an uncomfortable 2 seconds to ask the question and then to get an answer of, no, why would you think that? And I'm like, well, my brain is flawed. I didn't have enough data points. I was making up my own data points. But also from the analyst perspective too, your data points sometimes your data points are made up. Even if they are valid data points, sometimes you're drawing incorrect conclusions. So even if it's just sitting there telling myself, nobody's mad at me, and if somebody's mad at me and they're not going out of their way to tell me, I can't do anything about it, kind of like redirecting my final conclusion or my like working hypothesis based on the data points that I'm dealing with in that moment.
Okay, so your advice would be to gain clarity before you start overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is solid advice. I think gaining clarity. I say that all the time. If you like, for me, people talk often about like being passive aggressive, and I don't like passive aggressive and this, that, and the other thing. But they themselves are also passive aggressive because they'll like say something that like isn't direct. It's like a vague statement, and then they think they're being direct because they addressed the thing, but they didn't address it pointedly. They just addressed it, which is still kind of passive aggressive. I tell people all the time, I'm aggressive. So I'm just going to point blank be like, hey, what's wrong? And if there's nothing wrong, so it seems like something's wrong. And I'm just trying to understand because I don't want to keep making the same mistake that's pissing you off. Or, hey, you're pissing me off because of XYZ, and I'm not here to deal with it. So
Mm-hmm.
figure it out, or like realize that like you're just going to be that way because I don't know if you don't tell me. So again, gaining clarity, that's perfect advice. Do you think that your parents were overthinkers?
I know for a fact that my mom was, because my dad told me enough times.
Yeah.
He said, if you keep worrying yourself like this, you're going to end up in the hospital and give yourself a panic attack like your mom did early on in her career. And I was like, oh, valid. I am, yep. Um, she passed away when I was younger, so I didn't really know her as an adult. Yes, I worry frequently, constantly, but having an understanding of the patterns of survival that I've developed because of trauma, which is why I was so glad that that was kind of your housekeeping definition, is that sometimes overthinking is a trauma response.
Mm-hmm.
Giving myself grace and space to honor whatever it is that I'm stressed out about, to like, yes, this is a valid concern, but it's out of our control. So let's just like, part of the overthinking is also trying to rewire my brain to get to more valid conclusions.
Yeah. Um, so, we were just talking about it, and I think that, when it comes to overthinking, it's like knowing those data points. And I would like to think that I think everybody on some degree is an overthinker, and I think when it comes to parents, it's hard to see them as even in adulthood, it's hard to see your parents as anything else. So even when, like, unless you had one of those parents that was like a wet piece of tissue and fell apart at everything, it's hard to tell when they were overthinking and when they were just like handling their fucking business and being a parent. And like that's kind of where you are. So even if they were overthinking, you wouldn't necessarily know, and now it's kind of ingrained to you to react in a similar fashion because you grew up seeing it. So like for me, I think for sure my dad's an overthinker, but like it in his overthinking, you know, it's not always, it showed me that it's not always necessarily a bad thing. And my mom's an overthinker, and my mom's an overthinker in a way that like is like, how did you even get there? Like what map did you turn upside down and take a left turn instead of a right turn to end up wherever the fuck that is, kind of deal. So I think that's interesting. And then you mentioned something else, and it made me think about it. One of the things that I do, and I specifically started doing, again, I talk about my Apple Watch all the time. The whole reason I got it was to track my sleep because I was having anxiety because I wasn't sleeping. And the other thing was to track my heart rate. So when I start to have what I feel like is either anxiety or whatever, I instantly pull up the heart rate monitor and see what it says. And not too long ago, this is January 3rd at 2:25 p.m. My heart rate was at 100, and I was sitting still on the couch watching a movie, and my mind started going, and I couldn't get out of that spiral. And there's times where it'll be up at like 109, 110 sitting still. And I know that like those are those moments where like I've overthought and created this almost anxiety attack. But because now I've plotted those data points, I know what those things are, I know what the signs are, I know that to look at my heart rate and see what that looks like, I can take steps to try and calm myself down. Like when I was working at my previous job, I would go outside and I would sit on the step of my Jeep and like just look at the sky and take in the outside. It was noisy as fuck because cars are going by, but it was still you know outside, fresh air, that kind of thing. I always think that kind of trying to learn your body is always going to be better than anything else. I don't think anybody can give you any advice that's going to work if you don't start learning your body. I think that would probably be like the first and foremost, as you like to say, on advice giving. But I don't know, it's kind of hard. When you think about you being an overthinker, what's one part of overthinking that like you feel like your kids can see versus like something that when it's mostly internal?
This is genuinely divine timing from the universe, but literally tonight at dinner, my 3-year-old daughter said, I hit my funny bone walking by a door frame. I was like, ow, dang it, that hurt. She was like, what's wrong, mommy? Are you anxious? And I was like, you're 3, like, first and foremost, I know that I'm having conversations where my kids can identify emotions in themselves and also see it in other people. I have mixed emotions about my 3-year-old knowing and also applying the word anxious to me. They can tell that I'm in that when I am removed. I'm not emotionally available or like present in that moment, but also trying to get away from the chaos of 2 toddlers. Like if I'm up, if I remove myself from the situation for an extended period of time and I'm also just like generally not in a good mood. I don't know if you know this about me, homies, but I have a terrible poker face. You can always see what I'm thinking and feeling right on my face. So I know for a fact that they can tell on me, and that was a lesson I had to learn the hard way as a parent. because they are only 2 and 3, but that's still something that they can be on high alert about. Like it's a freaking bat signal that I'm showing from the roof of our house. Like they pick up on it. So trying to overcome that and get out of that and be emotionally present and present in the moment to be a better mom for them. Sometimes that's one of the only motivators that keeps me going back to therapy.
Yeah. So one thing I want to say to you, but also like I said to Courtney not too long ago, and I would say to everybody listening is like seeing your kids seeing you in those moments, whether you're a mom or not, your kids seeing you in those moments isn't a bad thing, and you got to stop saying to be a good mom or to be a better mom or to be a better parent or to be what, like you got to stop saying that, because you're saying that as if showing emotion is bad, and it is not bad. It is dealing with the emotion that they need to see. So when you quickly hush it up and brush it under the rug, that's what they're learning to do when they have emotion, is to brush it under the rug, to act like it's not a thing because you're trying to hide it from them. And like in contrast to what you're saying, like
Yes.
for me, when I like if I were to say my kids can tell when I'm like overthinking or anxious, like Lincoln has the mat tingle, like she's already got it. So like a lot of times when I'm feeling a kind of way, she instinctually will come give me a hug. And again, I don't know, we pick up on subtle body language, facial expression, size, like whatever the most minuscule thing that you think you're
Mm-hmm.
hiding, we pick up on, and she's already kind of dialed in on it, especially where I'm concerned. So like she'll come and give me a hug, so I know that she could see something. The thing that we do after that though is whether it's on the way to school the next morning when we're in the car, or like if it's at dinner or whatever, whenever I have the words and the clarity to like explain it, I talk them through exactly why I was upset in a way that they can understand, or why I was overthinking whatever it is, and then explain to them like the parts of my behavior that were good and the parts of my behavior that maybe weren't so good, and I wish I had a better handle on, not that I did something wrong, but just that I was ill equipped to handle it. And if I had it to do over, maybe I would have done
Mm-hmm.
this, or maybe I would have done that, so that they understand how to deal with those emotions. They understand how to deal with that overthinking. And I think a lot of what people do is they think they're a bad parent. And this is the part I told Courtney. She was crying and she was trying to hide that she was crying. And I was like, let your kids see you be emotional, but let
Mm-hmm.
them see you work through the emotion, because that's the part they need to learn. And if you're not going to do that, then you are emotionally stunting them. You're not emotionally stunting them because you are like not showing emotion, or I mean, because you are showing emotion, you're emotionally stunting them when you try and hide your emotion, and then they think, "Oh, my emotions must stay inside." There. It's literally, the movie is called Inside Out. So like you got to learn to deal with them in order for them to work correctly, and also to teach the next generation how to use them correctly. Um,
100%. Oh
you
my
know,
gosh. Thanks, Matt. I needed that.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to do, and one of the things that, like I said, that bugs me, um, I hold myself to a super high standard with people. I don't want to say under my command, but like as a coach, right? If I get mad and I snap or whatever, I apologize to every member of my team, and I stand up in front of them, and it's like, hey, I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have reacted that way. I was mad, or I hold myself to a higher standard than the behavior that I showed, and you deserve better, and you also deserve the respect of this apology. And almost always people are going to be like, oh well, you don't have to apologize, it's not that big of a deal, like you can't, don't be sad that you had emotions, or don't feel like you. But I hold myself to the standard that you owe the respect that I would give myself. So if I feel like I owe myself an apology for an outburst or for something that didn't seem right, I'm apologizing to you, not because I had the emotion, but because I should have handled it better. And I want you to know that I value you, and it shouldn't have been handled in such a way, regardless of what your feelings are.
Did you just drop the single hardest banger of a line in an apology that I'd ever heard in my life? Yes, you just did. You deserve the respect of this apology.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
outstanding. That's so wonderful. And so for me, same issue, flipped a little bit. Like, yes, my 3-year-old knows the word anxious and did accuse me a little bit at dinner tonight about being anxious or feeling anxiety. But she also knows one thing that I'm super convicted about in terms of parenting is communicating, but also just having like grown-up conversations with my children when they're young,
Yeah.
so it's not an uncomfortable thing when they grow up. And then also going back and apologizing or like owning up to my own failures. Maybe not necessarily, I say vice versa, your problem, because I'm still trying to unlearn that vulnerability is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So to even have a moment of vulnerability to watch, to allow other people to see me processing through complicated things, I'm emotionally stunted from the trauma I'm trying to do
Mm-hmm.
that anyways. But one thing I'm super convicted about is apologizing to my kids and owning parenting mistakes,
Yeah.
telling my kids all the time, accidents happen. And also, mommy and daddy, they said, mommy's 30 and I'm still trying to learn patience. We all are still trying to learn patience. So my 3-year-old will say, it's okay, mommy. Accidents happen and we're all still trying to learn patience, which is
Yeah.
very cute.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is like, one of the probably most common things I'm complimented on is my patience. And it's always annoying to me because it's like having having patience in a situation is a matter of perspective. So like, I work with tiny children who are annoying as fuck constantly,
Mhm.
but the patience that you have, it's like this kid ain't done nothing to me in this situation. So like, it's easy to have patience with them because like at the end of the day, like they're dealing with this shit, and I'm gonna send them home to mom and dad, and they're gonna go annoy mom and dad for like 3-4 hours before they go to bed, and like we'll do it again tomorrow. But like I'm getting paid to deal with this little motherfucker, so
Oh
I don't
my
care.
God.
And I find myself having less patience with adults who should know better. I can give a kid the grace of like, you're learning, we're trying to teach you, this is literally what my job is, like this
Mhm.
is this is the thing they hired me to do. So I don't have to have patience, I just have to have professionalism. So while it may look like patience, it's professionalism. It's the job. This is what I'm doing. When it comes to like dumb shit that adults say or dumb shit that adults do, my patience is pretty fucking short, and there is a line, and as soon as you hit it is like, nah, we're not doing that. And we're digressing from the like overthinking, but this is what kind of happens when you dive into overthinking, is the causation of it and where
Mhm.
those stem. And then on the flip side, what you should be doing when you come out of an overthinking episode and how you should handle yourself, because a lot of times outwardly people might not know that you were dealing with a lot, and they just saw you quiet, or they just saw you standoffish, or they just saw you with RBF, if that's what you want to consider it. And what was really going on the other side was, the analogy of, you're a duck with water treading off your back, but your feet underneath the water are going a mile a minute. And it's looking like you're patient, it's looking like you're professional, it's looking like you're pensive or whatever, while also overthinking. And I think that's the kind of trap that all of us are falling in, where it's hide that it's, I'm overthinking and I don't know how to express what feelings I'm having or what thoughts I'm having, because in some situations it's like there's too much to even like to explain to you what is happening right now in my head would take too fucking long, and I don't have
Mhm.
the context nor the patience. So yeah, I'm fine, and you don't mean to be snappy, but that's just the way it comes off, and that's where, like I said, I give those apologies. I did want to ask you, do you think the world has created more overthinkers over time, or do you think that like 30, 35 years ago there was just as many overthinkers, it just wasn't like as common to say or bring up?
I think there's more overthinkers, but we're not doing nearly enough constructive overthinking.
Fair, fair, fair.
Like, and I can always tell too when I'm ruminating, it's so easy for me to just flip open TikTok and scroll for like 10 minutes, just do
Mm-hmm.
brain rot and internet stupidity. I don't know about the amount of overthinkers and like overthinking. I know that there's probably less critical thinkers than there were 30 years ago, 35 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Um, so I asked that because I often get caught in this, like, I guess, thought spiral rabbit hole of like, was mental health issues something that is because people will have you believe now that like it's all of a sudden we have all these mental health issues, and it's because our food, it's because our water, it's because of soda, it's because of TikTok, it's because of whatever. But I kind of feel like the issues were always there. They just weren't talked about then. Just like,
Mm-hmm.
when you think of racism was always there. It just wasn't talked about as much. So it seems like it's like all of a sudden people are mad. It's like, it's not that we're all of a sudden mad. It's that we're just all of a sudden saying something. So, when I think of the world of overthinking and the world of overthinkers, I think that there may be more people identifying as somebody who overthinks, and it's kind of a problem, or it's kind of an issue in their everyday life, but more their bravery to say that this is a thing is more inspiring now. So
Mm-hmm.
people are like, I deal with anxiety, I deal with chronic overthinking, or I deal, two of us are sitting here in front of microphones saying just that, and I think that that needs to be recognized just as much as, you know the overthinking itself, is that it's more common than what people want to maybe admit, because it's scary to admit that you struggle
Mm-hmm.
with that, and you have a hard time sleeping, or whatever. And when you strip away all the stuff like caffeine consumption after 4 p.m. and TikTok, or Netflix, or whatever, and sweets, or foods that are chemically altered. Like, when you strip away all of that, people will still overthink, because it's in their nature to overthink, because it's a learned thing.
Yeah.
And I truly believe it it doesn't matter, I guess, whether or not this person is. It's like somebody that has a gambling addiction. They will find different ways to gamble, and once that gambling addiction is maybe thwarted by something else, trying to recover or trying to get away from it, it will be replaced with something else. It's just whether or not that thing is healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times overthinking, because it doesn't necessarily seem like that big a deal until you're having, chronic anxiety attacks, or you need to seek, you know professional help to just exist in your everyday life. It's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like,
Yeah.
everybody overthinks. And it's like, yeah, but we need to pay more attention to what that overthinking is doing to us.
And the long term effects of that too. I
Mm.
mean, long term, it's just in general, a cardiologist hates to see me coming, uh, whatever, but long term effects on the body with anxiety. And I also really want to circle back real quickly to the analogy that you made of relating like racism and overthinking
Mm.
about, these are topics that, whatever. It's also a tolerance level too.
Yeah.
Like we're no longer tolerating overt
Yeah.
racism, or now this is a new thing, especially with my own children. I'm trying to be very convicted about it. Like we're no longer tolerating problematic patterns of thinking and things that are invisible but still harmful to us.
Yeah. A thousand
So
percent.
even that alone, just having more open communication with my husband about, hey, I'm struggling and I need to redirect, so can you just tell me something nice?
Yeah. Um, so one thing I also wanted to talk about, and this is the asterisk that we put in this show, in the note when we talked about this, is when you're overthinking and you end up being right. And memories are created from fixing, or something that happened because you thought extensively about it. And when that creates a dynamic of overthinking and being right, so it's almost as if it becomes a necessity to you to overthink, because you're solving an issue. And this is probably the single most like interesting part of overthinking where I'm concerned. We talked about our parents, and I was trying to like kind of shade it a little bit, but my dad is an overthinker, but my dad is a tactical overthinker in a way that solves a problem before anybody else in the room even knew it was going to be a problem, and has found a way to do it in such a seamless manner, and by way of osmosis or whatever, I also do it that way. And it creates a weird, I don't want to say like support column for people to be like, that guy knows his shit. That guy will always have an answer. So let's go to him. And their problems get kind of shoved that direction because they know inevitably he's going
Mm-hmm.
to find out a situation to where it fixes. And when you can do that, and it doesn't impact you on like a personal level, or it doesn't impact you on like your life is having issues like, 100 beat per minute sitting still kind of things, solving those issues is seemingly a good thing because you're overthinking made you be right. And this is the conversation that, like, I think is really interesting, is when you're overthinking ends up making you right, because had you not overthought the situation, you wouldn't have been able to solve it, and you came out ahead. So now you learned, if I think hard about this, I can fix it before it's a problem, or I can solve an issue before it gets too bad. And this was a win. And then you create this almost dopamine hit of, I did something good with this overthinking. So the next time you overthink, and the next time you overthink,
Mm-hmm.
and just like a child learning, the boundaries of like, oh, I got to scream to get your attention. Oh, I got to scream louder to get your attention. Or I got to scream even louder. And they just find that line until it gets to the point of a full blown explosion and tantrum. And that's your anxiety attack. Um, do you feel like when you overthink, it becomes a problem solving tool, or do you think it becomes the problem in itself?
The problem in and of itself. And I like that you have framed it like this, because for me it's first and foremost, at 30, I've tried to very I've tried to discern when I am overthinking and when my intuition is trying to tell me something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference. Overthinking for me is always going to be a negative thing. The last thing I want to do is give a positive reinforcement for a negative problem.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or a negative behavior. So whether it is, yeah, I overthought like 100 problems and maybe proactively anticipated and solved half of a single problem. The juice is not worth the squeeze. That positive
Mm-hmm.
reinforcement is not going to be a good thing. Um, I've struggled with this in a work setting because I am one of those people that's like, well, what's going to happen next? I find
Yeah.
that I'm one of the only people sometimes in work settings that thinks like that.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a little bit like reassuring and be the, well, let's go talk to Caitlin. Like, let's go talk to Matt because they have a really unique way to think about things. But also, how
Why
much
do they always
bandwidth?
say that unique way of thinking? Like, it's not unique, fucker. Anyway,
I'm just,
continue. Sorry.
it's
No.
really problematic because
Yeah.
I tell my husband all the time, because earlier in this conversation you said something about like I would love to explain to you the journey that my brain
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
took, but I don't have the bandwidth, I don't have the energy. I have told him more times than I care to count, I just wish that I could just put you inside my head for like 2 seconds to just hear the noise, all of that. But yes, I'm trying to discern what is negative overthinking and what is, hey, your intuition. My dad used to say, listen to your gut.
Mm-hmm.
Members of my family don't have a ton of fun stories about supernatural, um, you know, visitors and like all the intuition in that way, the way that you have that with your family. My family our intuition and our like first impressions of people usually turn out to be pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so giving it the space for my gut or my intuition is what I've reframed it since my dad's passed away. Overthinking's bad, but I do still want to hold space for my intuition to tell me something that, hey, let's do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Still figuring that out, Matt.
So I personally wouldn't label overthinking as bad. I think it can be a tool.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that like I've come to like I guess process differently is things aren't necessarily good or bad. It's how you use them and what you're able to control about them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've definitely come to say more frequently than anything else is control what you can control. So when it comes to overthinking, if I'm overthinking about a situation, I think about what can I control in this situation and what can I not control. Let me focus my overthinking on the things that I can control and what's the best outcome in this situation to create this, favorable, you know, I guess situation as best I can, regardless of whatever it is. And it's taken that overthinking and using it as a I call it a difference engine where it's like
Mm-hmm.
what are all of the ways that this thing is going to fail and how would I fix each one of those situations rather than thinking this thing is going to fail and there's nothing that I can do about it because because there's so many problems or there because I start catastrophizing or whatever that thing is, right? So instead of doing that, how would I fix this? How would I fix that? And again, this is the learned part of it where you end up being right enough times, you gain perspective on the next situation. And if you can memory recall, and that's probably I always tell people that's what I'm the best at. It's not that I'm smart; I can just recall memory, and it's not because I know this thing. It's just because I happen to remember somebody else in a similar situation saying this thing. I didn't learn it. I just know how to apply the information from that situation to this situation, and they're similar enough that it might work out. So the overthinking is almost a way to navigate the difficult situation, and I don't let it rule my thought pattern when it gets to the point where it's like, well, now I'm just stuck on this and I can't sleep or I can't whatever. um then I know I've dedicated too much brain power to it,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to find something else to focus on, something else to get my brain to do a reboot or a reset and break that cycle. A lot of times it's turning on the TV in the middle of the night and listening to ridiculousness for like 2 hours because the funny kind of breaks that. Another thing that I do is I build the same dream car over and over and over and over down to the nut and bolt. So that my brain is so hyper focused on little details of a thing that it almost is like counting sheep for people, I would imagine, and
Yeah.
it allows me to break that pattern. And every time one of those thoughts creeps back in, it's like, oh, but what would I do with this? Would I do that? Like, would I have piping on the seats or would I not have piping on the seats? Would it be like
Mm.
straight leather or would it not be leather? I don't like leather and focus on all of those things because it's way more beneficial to me in this moment than letting myself get caught in that that overthinking unhealthy spiral. But again, I look at it as a tool. Just like you trust your gut, my or your intuition, I guess is what you redubbed it. I trust my intuition, but I also trust my thought pattern. And if I keep coming back to the same thoughts because I'm overthinking a situation, then that tells me because of how I use my overthinking or how I've trained myself to like accept parts of my overthinking that thing needs addressing rather than ignoring because I'm letting myself spiral or I'm letting it be a bad thing. And I think that there's a fine line of uh when something is helpful and when something is harmful, and using something as a tool versus not. Like uh for you in your job every day, overthinking has to be some part of what you're expected to do because of the nature of what you do. So you've trained yourself to accept that part of it as a tool to aid you in your job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on the personal side learning how to do the same thing. And I think that's such an interesting dynamic because, again, it's where when you could have been right because you overthought the situation, does is that now like a superpower for good where it could have been a superpower for evil in your brain? I don't know. You tell us out there. What do you think? Do you think overthinking can be a good thing, or do you think overthinking is always a bad thing? That feedback is so interesting because everybody's brain is so damn different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Especially in different situations and in different, contexts, so all of that. Usually overthinking in my personal life, always going to be a bad thing.
See, and I think that's one of the things too. Like for me, a lot of times I'm overthinking the things I'm overthinking, like, and people ask about or whatever. Usually, I can't share them, so like I can't tell, like I want to tell you so that you understand, but I can't talk about it. I can't tell you because the thing is like private or inappropriate or what, like this, the dynamic we have, I cannot tell you that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have to sit on it, and that's what's causing the overthinking because I have no outlet to put it, so it just got to stay up there rattling around. And I think that's one of those like tough situations. And when you're a parent, overthinking happens really quick, like the kids this, or spouse that, or the house this, or the bills that. And it's really easy to get caught up in that whirlwind where a snowball effect, essentially, of like where it bounces around. And for you specifically, in the life that you've lived, your ability to overthink situations is so drastically different than you know a lot of other people because of just the nature of how your life unfolded. And
Mm-hmm.
not I don't think anybody could be more suited for handling overthinking the way that you overthink than you, because you are the only person that lived your life, and it's such a wild fucking concept.
Homies, please give us some feedback, because already Matt and I having such different, like, it's so interesting when we get into like these rabbit holes and topics like this, where on most things, the Venn diagram of our
Yeah,
perspectives
yeah.
is so interesting. Like, yeah, yeah, I like it. And there's like multiple one-liners that you dropped in this episode that I was just like, oh my gosh, I gotta ponder this. So now I'm not gonna overthink. I'm going to digest.
There you go. There you go. I think that one of the things that I love hearing is when people are like, I had to pause and
Hmm.
like sit on that for a second. And that's a way to you know not let your brain run off on into Candyland. It's a way to like process information. And I think those are the things that are helpful tools to I guess create a better dynamic in yourself on digesting information. So maybe you won't end up overthinking. I don't know. And one last, I guess, nugget is remembering to say helpful and not and replace the word healthy, because a lot of people say healthy and it's not about being healthy, it's about being helpful. And
Mm.
replace bad with being unhelpful, because things aren't necessarily bad, they're just not helpful in the situation. Sometimes they are helpful. It doesn't always mean bad. So replacing those words, and that in itself could maybe stop some of your overthinking, because you think things are bad, or you think you're wrong because, and it's not that you're wrong, your opinion is your opinion and therefore cannot be wrong. So
Oh my gosh. That's like number 4.
have you not heard that before? Is that not a thing that you're like,
We
oh,
I think it's definitely something we've talked about, but it's always so interesting to me how you articulate the concept of just like reframing. Like, I don't know. I think sometimes I think of the world in very black and white,
mm-hmm.
and in other ways I think of it in super gray. But sometimes the way that you just word things, I'm like, come on, Matt, I gotta chew through that. Are you kidding me? Like, just reframing and taking the reframe that you just stated still gives space for you to feel what you're feeling and
Mm-hmm.
to acknowledge it, but it also takes away the like the doom and like the panic,
the guilt and shame,
the guilt, the shame, but also the like panic of I'm doing a good thing or I'm doing a bad thing. Like I'm winning or I'm losing. And
we're learning, friends. We're learning.
Do you see? And that, I'm also a vocal processor. Can you guys tell?
Yeah. Like I said, I think that reframing, I spent a solid like 3 months learning and understanding how important reframing is. And then I spent the next 2 years listening and hearing and seeing in myself those things and like learning, oh man, this is a time where I should say something different, or I shouldn't look at this way. And now it's hard to like, it's like hard not to reframe fucking everything. This shit is stupid and I hate it. But also I did learn this, so it wasn't all bad. Like it's like literally it's the fucking worst. Like perfect example. We all have the same amount of seconds in the day, right? So if you're in a rush, I have no problem stepping aside in a grocery line. I have no problem letting you go past me when you're fucking speeding behind me, because we all have the same amount of seconds in the day. If you feel like yours are that much more like valuable than mine, by all fucking means go in front of me and save those like 45 seconds you're going to save, because that light's still turning red or this cash register still isn't fucking moving. I don't care, because I know how I'm going to be spending my seconds, and it's not on like being irritated because this line is moving slow. Like I might get a little annoyed, but at the end of the day, it's not, it has nothing to do with that.
Oh my
And
gosh.
now it's like, I can't not like, it's almost swung too fucking far, where it's like, oh my God, why are you like, just chill the fuck out. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like people grumbling behind me in line. It's like, dude, I'll be here all fucking night and just keep letting people go, because y'all are fucking stupid. And it's swung too far. It's swung too far the other direction. I gotta find that middle ground again. You know, people waving you on at stop signs. It's like, this is why people don't know how to fucking use stop signs, because you're always waving people on and nobody knows whose turn it is. Just fucking go. Don't wave me on. Just go. It's your turn. But, you know, like I said, it becomes, we're all valuable as far as our time goes. Reframing is an art, and you have to look at it as like a nonstop like process, I guess.
And something that's healthy.
Exactly. Something that's helpful.
Helpful and healthy and helpful.
Yeah. No healthy, just helpful. Just helpful.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, hopefully, you know, you guys enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you didn't, you know, find yourself falling into like an overthinking trap of overthinking, and do I overthink, and how do I overthink? Feel free to comment on this episode on Spotify, or, you know, reach out to us on the socials, all of those things. I genuinely hope something in this episode made you feel less alone, or like, damn, I do that too, or damn, that's interesting, I didn't know. Because those are always the good ones. When we get that feedback, it's always like, okay, we can keep podcasting another week. That made me feel, that made me feel like we're doing something good. So keep sending those in, keep doing that. You can always do the thing like whatever. I think that we're still stuck on Trash Gremlin. I think that's the last like thing from like last August that got like sent in, was Trash Gremlin. So be like Trash Gremlin, leave a comment, be like all of the like, I think we're at like 25 or 30 reviews. Be like those people and go leave reviews. You know, start sharing with your friends, tell them, go listen to episodes, all that stuff. It's super easy. You could put it in your story and share a link, and then you don't got to do nothing. They can click on the link. But yeah, other than that, you guys have a good night or day or whatever it is.
Bye, homies.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.